All right, nice to see you here on a free-for-all Good Friday, right? Good to have you here. Another sad shooting here, this time at Florida State University. At least two people killed. Others remain hospitalized, so I don't know where the final toll might end up. But it's just terrible. In this case, so strange, the presser yesterday took a big twist in the middle when the county sheriff says, yeah, by the way, the kid here is well known to us because he's been involved with the county sheriff, and his mother has been a deputy for 20 years. Join me, Steve Doolin here, the best-looking guy in legality today, the good lawyer. There he is, smartest, best-looking lawyer of all time, Steve Doolin. Doolin?
Thanks, Gruber.
Of course. Look, in Michigan, because one of the things you also learned is that the gun, one of the guns he had, and maybe the gun he used, I'm not sure, I'm clear on this yet, belonged to his mother, the deputy. And in Michigan, if that had happened, you'd go to jail based on that alone. Pretty close, right?
Well, if the child is a minor, I didn't catch his age.
He's 20. He's 20.
Yeah, no, that's not covered by the safe storage law that we just passed last year in Michigan, that went into effect early this year. That one is for minor children, and there's sort
and
of
that goes back to the high school shooting, right? Of 3 or 4 years ago. Go on.
Right. So there's the law that we have in place in Michigan has sort of a sliding scale of penalties depending on how severe the harm is that's caused when the minor gets a hold of any adult's gun, really, not just parents. And in this case, since he's 20, that wouldn't apply necessarily. Now, under the theory that the high school shooter's parents were prosecuted under, if anyone knows that a person, right, and this is the same in most states, but if you know that a person is likely to do some violence with your gun and you knowingly provide them with the gun, you can still be charged as an accessory if you're the gun owner.
Well, here's the bottom line is this. I think she's an 18-year veteran of the sheriff's department, well known. He was well known. Right, he was involved in youth programs with the sheriff's department, but her career is over. I mean, let's just call it for what it is. Her career is over. No way around it in this day and age. Period. And you'd have to ask, how would he have access to her service weapon? I mean, honestly.
Well, number of ways. He could have broken into a locked room or a locked container.
That's fair.
That's entirely possible. Kids, we're both parents. Kids get into everything. And as the little kids get older, you have to sort of escalate your levels of security for everything. Household chemicals, car keys, guns, anything that's dangerous. When they're really, really little, you keep them out of the silverware drawer in the kitchen.
All true. So what do you think? I mean, look, you and I are gun owners. Proud gun owners, common sense gun owners. I don't believe anybody's gotten my gun ever when they weren't supposed to. What about penalties? What about the safe storage law in Michigan? What about what happened in Florida? I mean, I think it's reasonable for people to have questions about why does this keep happening? Is there something we could do differently? Is there something we could do better? I think that's a reasonable question. I don't know what the answer is, Doolin.
I don't know that there's any sort of cookie cutter one size fits all. It's really hard to argue with the law that we've got in place in Michigan because there's no requirement that the gun be stored in a certain specific way for all gun owners. It says very clearly, if you have minor children in the home, you must keep your gun secure, and it provides a couple of different ways you can do that, which are the common sense ways, gun locks, safes, etc., the things that we do anyway, most of us. And if you don't, and the kid gets a hold of the gun and something bad happens, then you've got these different penalties depending on how severe the harm is. So the law doesn't actually apply until or unless a child does some kind of harm with the gun owner's gun. and it has to be a place where the gun owner knows that there are children likely to be. So that one's pretty hard to argue with. And a lot of gun owners actually supported it very strongly when it was first proposed. Now, when you're talking about an adult person who commits a crime essentially by getting a hold of a gun, right? He stole his mother's gun, is what it sounds like.
Yeah.
The general rule is if somebody else commits a crime, they cut off your liability. If you steal my car and go rob a bank, it's not going to be my fault as the car owner. So it's called intervening superseding cause, and it's a very well established idea in law. When we're talking about adults, it really is a different story.
Yeah. Well, we'll see where this all leads. I just every time I look up and it happens too often, I see active shooter, and my heart sinks.
Sure.
It does, because that it doesn't end well for a lot of people, and it doesn't end well for gun owners like you and I who follow the law every day and respect firearms. I'll give you the last word.
It's sadly predictable. I teach a firearms law course to law students, and I tell them every time I teach that course, I predict that there will be another mass killing in a so-called gun-free zone soon. I call them mass murderer empowerment zones. And this happened in another mass murderer empowerment zone. In fact, Florida almost passed a guns on campus bill earlier this year. And there's a group out there who are very proud of the fact that they kept guns off campuses, but they don't, do they?
No.
It doesn't work that way.
It doesn't work that way. Doolin, glad you're here. Happy Good Friday, my friend.
Thanks, Gruber. Have a great Easter.
You too, my friend. There you have it. We usually have more fun, but when things like this happen, it kind of sucks the joy out of it a little bit. Hopefully next Friday will be more fun. It's the Steve Gruber Show.